Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, everybody. The podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm just pointing both ways to cover my bases these days. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk a little Critical Role. But first, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing all right. All right. I got a work conference tomorrow and Friday, which, by the way, no stream Friday because I will not be here.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Detail. But yeah, just trying to get everything taken care of. You know, the grind always continues. So
yeah,
anyway,
I feel that.
How are you doing, my friend?
You know, I'm okay. I definitely can't complain. But similarly, Wednesdays just in general are usually pretty busy for me. So I'm having the now slightly rarer second cup of coffee.
It's my first cup,
okay,
but later in the day than I'm used to.
Yeah.
In the morning. So,
but it was fate that we would share a cup again. Clearly,
yeah, and we both have white shirts on today.
Yeah, well, mine's technically blue. It's like a very light blue. I'm sorry. Should we run it back from the start?
You know what? I'm out.
But yeah, you know, I'm doing all right though. Can't complain.
Well, I do have some good news.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated to you or the channel.
Sure.
But my D&D group that took a break because everyone was having babies is coming back.
Really?
I did. I sent I was feeling high. I was driving the other day and sent off a voice memo to the group and was like, when we doing this, fam? And like everyone was like, yes, let's make it happen.
Just to clarify, Blake was not under the influence while he was driving.
Yes, that's true. I was feeling very positive.
I was super tripping out, got behind the wheel. No, I'm just kidding. But that's super exciting, man.
Remember that when we were kids? Why do they call it stoned? It's a little breadcrumb of a lore drop from being Will.
You'd have to roll a nat 20 on the insight check to figure out more. But no, that's exciting because I feel like the last time we talked about this, it was like an indefinite thing because like somebody was pregnant and then like somebody else had gotten pregnant.
We're all friends outside of D&D. And so we were all having dinner the other night at one of their houses. And the couple who just had a baby, but right before they had a baby, they were like, Blake, we got to get back to D&D. And I was like, well, you know, I know you guys are going to need some time. And they were like, are we though? And then they actually had the baby. Well, they were at this get together and they were like, hey, I think we're good. Like, I think we want to, you know, come play. But I was like, you got to leave the baby at home though.
So, yeah, I was gonna ask, how does that work? Like,
so my buddy JP, who is the dad, he, you know, like the baby Bjorn, or like, I don't know if they're all called that.
Yeah.
Like baby carrier, I guess. They just have like a very quiet, content baby. It's like the whole time we were hanging out, the baby was right there and like literally did not make a peep.
Okay. So they would bring the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think they're thinking that it's just going to be, you know,
just smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, man. Or have you already like plotted the sesh, or it's just like
that's the final hump?
Okay.
I think actually getting it. There's still one person who hasn't responded yet. But it looks pretty like 70-ish%.
Okay.
But yeah. So
nice.
Which for our listeners, if you like playing D&D, we do have a channel called the Adventure Board in the Discord. If you want to run your own game or you want to request someone to run a game, we actually have a handful of DMs in the Discord who are way more experienced than I am, have been DMing for many years, and are probably more than interested in at least talking about a one-shot or a short form or long form campaign. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's my little subtle Discord plug.
Boom. There we go. Yeah, I think, and I didn't like delve into it, but I saw somebody even post it in there today. So I don't know if that's a new campaign or maybe an older one that they were just bringing up again. But yeah, great place to find a game with some like-minded folk.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true. Sorry, I was actually just trying to pull up the Discord.
You're good.
I realize I can't pull it up on my computer. It screws up the recording.
Right. But yeah, quick plug for the Discord. Join us there. We also will have our Critical Role watch party tomorrow night for Thursday and every week. And then, you know, people are probably tired of us saying this every time, but just going to go ahead and get it out there. Our Sunday Funday watch parties probably picking back up soon. And like I mentioned, I think last time, there might be some unofficial ones happening soon as well. So
yeah, I think we're going to go on a little bit of a Brennan Lee Mulligan bender.
A little Brennan, eh?
Some D20 content. We've had Constantly Comic had a specific request, and then someone else requested a different piece of content from Brennan Lee Mulligan. So we'll have, I think we're going to have something in the near future. It's just a matter of scheduling, just time and scheduling. So,
yeah. And then actually, I don't know why we haven't mentioned this yet. I guess because it's still a little bit early, but I presume, we haven't talked about this, but I presume we'll be having Legend of Vox Machina watch parties as soon as that comes out as well.
I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. So, because I think Amazon Prime got rid of their like watch party function, which is how the team at Critical Role used to do it. And I don't know what they're planning on doing, but that won't affect us at all. So, we'll still just be doing that in the Discord.
Yeah. That's a big L from Amazon.
Yeah.
So when like one of your biggest shows, like even they're saying like, why did y'all get rid of this? But hey, you know what? What do I know? I'm just a hapless nerd who enjoys content. So I don't know how the bigwigs do it.
That's right. We'll just leave them to their own devices and see what happens. But so again, that won't be for a few more weeks at this point, but definitely be looking forward to that as well.
And then if I can make one, this is just going to be a constant plug, I think, every video. I just love talking about Worlds Beyond Number, which is an audio D&D game, an audio story form of D&D. I'm describing it so weird. Oh, you know what? Don't listen to it. Never mind.
Let's run it back.
No, but seriously, this is one of the absolute best audio podcasts that I've ever listened to. And it is much shorter than Critical Role, so it's very easy to catch up. It's extremely well done. If you've watched CR, there's some familiar faces. Obviously, Brennan Lee Mulligan, who many people are familiar with, as well as Abria Iyengar, Lou Wilson, and Erika Ishii. An incredible cast. They just finished Chapter 3, and it's just great. It's so freaking good. So I highly recommend that you check that out on Spotify.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like Blake mentioned, Arc 3 just ended, so there's usually about a month or so where they will take a break, which is the perfect time to catch up. And if you like listening to us talk, which maybe you do, maybe you don't, but we also cover that show just like we cover Critical Role. So if you jump in, you can come hang out with Blake and I as we nerd out even more. But yeah, totally give my stamp of approval as well. It's fantastic. So you guys are missing out if you haven't checked it out yet.
Well, I think we're ready to rock then.
All right, let's do it. Well, you guys know the drill. We are going to give our recap of the Critical Role episode before we dive in. We cut that out, host it separately for your convenience. And if you find yourself just on the recap, head on over to our full discussion video to hear our full thoughts on the episode. But without further ado, this is episode 106 of Campaign 3, Unseelie Interrupted. So we pick up in Vasselheim at Wayland's house, this sea popper, aka Chetney's superfan. The party is, I still believe it's the night before, like they haven't slept yet. And so we are kind of planning what the next move should be. And ultimately, Imogen decides to message Ira, the Nightmare King. And she tells him, hey, we're headed to the Fae. There's this meeting going down between Ludinus and the Unseelie, your favorite people. So we figured maybe you would want to join us to kind of mess that up and, see what's going on. Ira responds and says that he's just been laying low on Cravirus, still on Ruidus, but he would be happy to join if he could be of use to them. So they talk a little bit more, and then they tell him to meet them at Nana Mori's in the FEYWILD the next day. So at this point, everyone starts to go to sleep except Fern, who goes to talk to Wayland and says, how much will you sell me that egg for? Chetney's egg, which is Wayland's like most prized possession. And he goes, it's not for sale. And she goes, well, what if I trade you for it? And he says, well, I'm only interested in other like original Chetney pieces, like some that are rare that like, one of a kind no one else would have. And Fern kind of looks through what Chetney has given her, but isn't really, I don't think she's willing to part with the main thing Chetney gave her. And the other item she has, Wayland's not interested in. So she's like, okay, well, no worries. And then leaves. So Wayland goes to bed and Fern goes to bed, except not really. She has decided to just go steal the egg since he wouldn't give it to her. So she tries to do that, but it's trapped, and she quickly like gets her hand stuck in this safe, which like sets off an alarm. And here comes Waylon, out into his living room. And he's basically like his eye is like twitching as he's saying like, "Oh, it's fine," because Fern's like, "Oh, so sorry," and he's like praying to the Platinum Dragon like to give him the strength not to freak out. But he frees her from the trap, takes the egg himself, and like retreats to his bedroom with it, and Fern goes to sleep as well. So the next morning, Chetney thanks Waylon for his hospitality, and he warns him about Fern, being like, "Watch out for her." And Chetney also gives Waylon a carved peacock that I think like its feathers like spray out. And that, of course, has him head over heels. And the crew leaves and they go to find Keyleth. And they ask her for a few things to help with the exhaustion from Ashton and Fern having gone in their Titan form. And also if she has any potions. And she is obviously the one who's going to help them get to the Feywild as well. She says, of course, she will help. She doesn't have potions, but she gives them some money and points them toward like some shops where they could go buy some stuff. And they ultimately decide that they aren't going to go buy anything yet. They're going to go to the Feywild first, but they keep the money. And during this little moment, there is a brief conversation about which god Breus is going to serve now, the Platinum Dragon or Asmodeus. And he basically says, you know what, I'm going to just kind of see what happens. Like, it's kind of up in the air. Like, we'll see who, treats me better kind of thing. He's very ambiguous at the end of the day. So Keyleth then escorts them to a nearby tree. She casts Tree Stride, which opens up this portal, or maybe it's transport via plants. I always get those two confused, but opens the portal to the Feywild, and they step in. And she basically says, just send me a message when you need to come back. Assuming I'm not busy, I'll come get you guys. So the party step through this portal and they arrive in the swampy Feywild. And Fern basically just starts leading them toward Ligament Manor. They arrive without issue. Fern introduces Maury to Breus and Dorian, who weren't with the crew last time they were here. Maury reveals that Fern's parents are still here, and she's like, let me make you guys some drinks. But there's a brief conversation with Chetney and Maury, because she looks at him and says, your legend is growing, which is their deal that they made. And he says, yeah, I have a fan club now. And he then gives her a piece of Viridian glass and says, there's more where that came from. And she's like, yes, please bring me more. So then she makes some drinks. Everyone kind of, has a little meet and greet. And then Ira arrives. And there's a little bit of a cold, kind of flirty tension between Maury, Ira, and then also Breus, who kind of like a little weird love triangle thing that happens. But they basically fill them in that they're going to go to the Unseelie. And Maury says, oh yeah, there's been movement with them, so you guys need to go. Like, you're probably already running late. So before they leave, Fern has a quick moment with her mom, who like comes downstairs, and her mom gives her a necklace, which is actually made out of the shattered lens. I forget the name of the lens, but from very early on in the campaign. So she gives her that. And then Maury conjures like these 9 spectral 6-legged horses out of mist that the party is going to ride on. And she warns them not to ride too high or else they'll be visible. And that the horses only last an hour. So the crew says their goodbyes, gets on these horses, and then basically fly up out of Ligament Manor and head toward the Unseelie meeting place. And that's where the first half ends.
Yeah, so coming back from the break, there's some classic D&D shenanigans of what are we going to name our horses, and they all settle on Japanese food names by accident. And then Ashley Johnson changes it up, and oh man, now I'm blanking on the name of hers, but they're like, great news, we don't have to worry about the horses dying because they're already dead. So because they're kind of like these spectral horses. They eventually make their way to the meeting ground, this sort of like cursed abandoned village where this, I don't know if it was like a temple, but like this sort of central building is. And they are thinking about like, how do we go about this? Like, maybe we should like kill the guards as we move in. Maybe we should ambush them. But Oren points out like, well, isn't like the plan to kind of like create a rift and like turn them against one another? And so we can't just like go in guns blazing. We have to be very subtle about it. Ira is also present, and they ask Ira about the nature of this village and like what exactly happened here. Because the village is long abandoned, it's long overgrown. And in fact, as they're looking through it, they actually see a number of bodies, like long dead bodies that have been grown over and cocooned by like the Fey wildlife. Ira basically talks about how, you know, the Feywild, for all of its like intricacies and mystique, that this was a village for people who were sort of like free spirited and had sort of like their own sense of creativity. And Matt didn't say this, but I kind of took it as kind of like granola-y, like we're going to kind of do it our own way and kind of just see how things go. And there was even a comment about how something about how those who maybe didn't necessarily have the same appreciation for the art chart that others did, that this would be a place that would attract those people who kind of want to create in their own right and like see what can happen. But that basically the village found itself meeting a sudden end. Picking up on that, there is a point later where Chetney does his grim psychometry on one of the corpses. Matt gives a cool flavor of like a vision happening in reverse. And basically the vision starts with people like foaming at the mouth, bleeding, like very Ebola-esque, by the way. Bleeding from the eyes, mouth, nose, everywhere, dying. Everyone's dying. And as the memory plays backwards, it plays back. I think it was a father who was like pouring a tea kettle for their son. And Chetney realizes that the water of the tea kettle is poisoned in some way, that there's something unsettled within it, or rather settled within it, not only there, but all within like the groundwater too. Like this village is long gone, completely infected by whatever is present here. And that's the most that he gets of that memory. Coming back to the party does split up around this place. There's a number of guards present. They can also hear Gloamgut, who's sort of prowling around and moving around, keeping watch. And they do, in fact, decide, you know what, if we're going to like make this plan work out, we should at least take care of some of the perimeter guards that are keeping us from getting closer to like this central chamber where the meeting is happening. With the help of Ira, they begin, it's very like classic video game where like you take out a guard and like your NPC takes out one too. They're basically taking out guards while Ira is helping them also take out guards. There is a battle map down, and just for the sake of speediness, much of like this last hour is them navigating these guards. They do eventually make it towards the central chamber where there's two guards out front, and they finally just decide, you know what, like this is like the best chance we have to ambush and potentially take out some heavy hitters that would be important for Ludinus to have. Let's just go for it. There's a hold person casted on the two guards. They basically move in tactically and knock these guards out and kill them. And then inside the chamber meeting, they can hear Ludinus basically scolding someone who represents the Unseelie Court about their inaction and helping him and the Ruby Vanguard. This person who we don't get an identification of basically is representing the Unseelie Court and essentially says, we have to be subtle in our efforts. That's how we've always acted. We've always been kind of behind the shadows, and that is sort of our MO. And Ludinus is essentially like, well, unless you want to continue to live under the control of the gods, essentially, I'm going to need something more from you, excuse me. And Ludinus also references what he calls an uncanny ambush, and basically says, like, I need your help against this army that's moving towards the Malleus Key. The voice presumably departs, and then Ludinus scolds Zethuda. And essentially, as they're moving out, the party decides that this is the perfect time for the ambush. And this is also when Gloamgut arrives. And I would say there's probably a good 5 minutes of the party freaking out over the actual scale of Gloamgut, which I always envision of like kind of this small little mini dragon mount. And Matt puts down this is probably the biggest mini in this campaign so far. an insanely large gloam gut with Zathuta's mini on top, like mounted on the head. And we're presumably going to combat next episode. So that's where our episode ends. Episode 106, Unseelie Interrupted. If you're watching just the recap, click the link below to get our full discussion and also random detail. If you like these recaps cut out as their own separate video, tell us to keep doing them. But if otherwise you'd like it just to stay as one singular video, we've been talking about, do we want to keep pulling these out or not? Let us know what you think. All that to say, let's dive into it.
Yeah. And for the record, the recaps will continue no matter what. It's just
Right.
if we make it their own video or not. Yeah, so please let us know. But yeah, good job, man. This was a fun episode, but not too much happened.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm trying to like stop doing this thing where I say yes and agree, and then I just repeat what the other person said.
I think that's just the natural flow of convo.
Yeah, but you're right, because I watched it with people in our Discord, but you hadn't seen it. And we were chatting about it, and I was like, it's going to be a really easy is not the right word. It's going to be a very quick episode to discuss because, yes, nothing really happened. Still a really fun episode.
Yeah.
It's just fun D&D, I guess. And how about that gloam gut reveal, dude?
What a cool mini.
I love that everyone, and probably many viewers too, were all collectively like, oh, okay. It's much larger. And I also love that Fern is still very earnest on, I will make that mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gloam gut will belong to me. So, and Matt said he was going to say who created that mini, but I haven't seen anything about it yet.
I did see it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they tweeted about it.
Okay. I don't have a Twitter, and ever since they've made it private where you can't view tweets unless you have like the direct link.
That's so weird.
I can't ever check that stuff again. But
I've got it. I'll have it here in a second. Tyler Walpole.
Okay. Tyler, great job.
Yeah.
What an incredible mini. I'm very excited to see this battle sequence with Gloam Gut. But an incredible mini.
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak, he's the artist. So I don't know if that means he maybe he just made the concept art, but maybe he did everything. Like maybe he made the mini too. So I just don't want to misspeak, but he's the one they tweeted about.
And I mean, the people who paint the mini, the person who paints the mini has to be incredibly skilled.
Yes.
So assuming that that's Tyler, especially with that, Tyler, you did a great job too.
Yeah. I've never painted a mini, but so like maybe I shouldn't speak on it at all, but like it seems impossible. Like I don't know how people get like those details that fine.
I've paint my minis for my campaigns. Yeah. I'm really awful at it. I've gotten a little bit better. It's an entire I don't know if it's fair to say it's an entire industry. It is, because like Warhammer, there's a whole thing around it, and like Citadel, mini paints is a whole industry. It is really fun when you start to learn and discover things. I'm just looking over at my minis. I did a barbarian that's similar to Grog a little bit.
Yeah.
But like an ice barbarian kind of Goliath.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first mini that I was like, dude, this is good.
Yeah.
But it's fun when you put it down with your players and they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones are like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So
anyway. Yeah, it seems like a very like Zen kind of process.
That's a good way to put it.
I feel like you get like locked into it.
Yeah.
And can you I feel like I would just mess up. And so is it easy to like remove paint, or do you just have to kind of like paint over it if you mess up, or like what's the process there?
It's all fixable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a friend of mine who I wouldn't say he does it professionally, but he's as close to like the perfect. He's pretty incredible. He sends me a lot of pictures and processes, and I ask him a lot of questions for my own minis.
Yeah.
And he's always had a really like low key is not really the right word, but just like it's all good, man. Like if you screw it up, you can always fix it.
Very Bob Ross, like little happy accident.
Yeah. Except the thing about Bob Ross, I love Bob Ross. But Bob Ross would be like, yeah, if you make a little oops, and then he would have like this savant-esque, like turns it into like this, and you're just like, how did you just do that?
Yeah.
So anyway, but shout out to our listeners, by the way, who paint their own minis. I think it's a very admirable and it's just a very cool skill. I admire people who can do that really well.
Yeah, Critical Role used to have a show, mini primetime. It was called something like that with and I'm blanking on his name right now. Boy Meets World. I know he probably hates being referred to as that, but you know who I'm talking about?
No,
Did you watch Boy Meets
I
World?
yeah, but I don't know the show
He's
though, so
the
I'm not
older
sure.
brother from that show,
Yeah,
but
okay.
he's on Critical Role. He's Cash from Vox Machina.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I get I'm
That's
so
cool.
blanking on his name, but he used
Yeah,
to have
no,
like
I
a
know what
little
you're talking about.
show where like he'd bring on a guest and they would both paint minis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they should bring that back for with
You know,
Beacon.
it's too bad. I don't want to get so like in the weeds on these random segues, but it's too bad like in a culture where there's so much content out there, it's a shame there's not enough space sometimes for shows to like exist despite not having like a crazy following, if that makes sense. But
Yeah,
it's the nature of it. But
yeah.
you know, I was in our Discord, we were talking about great D&D shows. Like people were throwing out recommendations, and I was amazed like how many shows people were talking about. Let's see how many. There was like 3 or 4. It wasn't like there was like 50. But shows I had never heard of
Yeah,
that I was like, "Oh, it's really cool like the content that's out there
for
that
sure, man.
people, don't always get discovered."
Yeah, and just think about like how many amateur shows are out there. Like just because there's like
Yeah.
hundreds, if not thousands, of like actual plays out there nowadays, thanks to
Mhm.
the Adventure Zone, D20, and Critical Role,
Right.
and I'm sure there's some absolute gems. I know people in our Discord do that, and I've enjoyed those. So yeah, I bet there's so many. But anyway, yeah, I Will Friedle. I looked it up. That's his name. But
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
uh, yeah, we've been on a long tangent about painting minis, but
Well, there's also not a lot to talk about for the episode. I
yeah.
mean,
Ooh, random.
yeah.
Will Friedle, also the voice of Terry McGinnis. Do you know who that is?
Mm-mm. It's familiar, but
Yeah,
I'm
I
blanking.
knew because you do know it, but I didn't know if you'd know the name or not. But Batman Beyond,
Bro.
classic.
Yes. Yes. What a great show, by the way.
Yeah, so good, man. Just Batman the animated series,
Yeah.
all time great. And then
Was Mark
so
Hamill Joker in that show?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And Kevin Conroy Batman,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Mhm.
legendary.
His voice is forever cemented in my mind.
Yes,
May he rest in peace.
100%.
So,
And yeah, so I had to share that fun fact as well. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
I
getting
forgot
back to
where we
the
were.
episode,
Yeah,
we were talking about Gloam Gut.
there we go.
There's not a whole lot, I guess, since we're already here. There's not a whole lot to talk about for the second half. I guess there's some things to talk about Nanamori and Ira, maybe a little bit. But before we go backwards, they're in this town. I'll just say in general, I don't know if we're going to ever get any more details about the town, but I think Matt does such a great job with his world building of giving just enough intrigue about a
Yeah,
location
yeah,
and like some like flavor there that makes it kind of interesting the setting is interesting. It's not
yeah,
just another town or another place or another abandoned temple site or what have
yeah.
you.
Agreed. I'm very curious as to like what actually happened here. And like you said, I don't know that like unless the players for whatever reason like really dig into that and like ask
Yeah.
other NPCs or Chet if he does like another grim psychometry or something. But I could see this something that, and it might already be in one of the source books to maybe like find some more out about it.
Mm,
But yeah, very curious. The whole like, especially that whole poison little vignette, that was very intriguing.
yeah.
But
By the way, this is this is the last rabbit trail I'm going to mention.
it won't
I
be.
promise. Worlds Beyond is getting 100-page lore drop
Wait,
later
he's
this
getting
month.
what? Sorry, I
A
missed a
hundred
word.
page, a 100-page lore drop later this month, like a source book. Source book's too formalized a term, but that's later this month, by the way.
What? I had not heard that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it was on the public fireside
Oh, I haven't
for
listened to that yet.
which was a total delight to
Yeah.
listen to, by the way. But anyway, sorry. That's just you said source book, and I was like, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
So
No,
sorry.
listen, you guys, the fact that you guys aren't listening to Worlds Beyond Number is soon going to make me angry. I'm not there
Yeah.
yet, so I'm giving you a warning. We're still cool for now, but soon it's going to reach the point where I won't speak to you guys anymore. But
Yeah.
no, so yeah, we will preach the gospel to anyone that will listen. But that's exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, this city, this town, and what was the like the gilded gift or something was like the
I purposely didn't say it because I knew I would butcher it, and it's in my. Now that I'm done with the recap, let me
yeah, I think it was
go.
like the name of the like I don't know temple. I don't want to call it a temple because I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
there's a
fair.
key in there. Let me just pull up my notes again because I didn't write it down in the today's recap notes, but it's in my previous one. Naturally, I don't name my notes. They all say untitled document. The Shrine of Gilded Gifts in the. Oh, I just wrote not far from the Sablecast grounds. So the place is called something, though. I just don't remember what it is. Actually, I bet it's on the Critical Role wiki at this point.
Which so if it is, let me know because there's probably more context there. But oh yeah, the Amethyst Gulch or something like that.
Amethyst Gulch Sierras, which is like the area that it's in. But the name okay. Well, it's not in the Critical Role wiki, unfortunately. But
Okay. Well,
anyway, yeah. Shrine of Gilded Gifts within the Amethyst Gulch Sierras.
the 2 and 2 I put together, which may not be fair, but the line I could connect there was perhaps it's related to the Arcart, like since he's the deity that we know that one of the main 2 that is worshipped around these parts, and then 2 like the one that gave humanity magic. Maybe this is just maybe Downfall is too fresh on my mind and this isn't a connection to be made, but that's what I assumed this was in reference to, like some sort of shrine to the Arcart.
Prevenier is the name of the city.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
I knew it was a P. Which yeah. Anyway, yeah, interesting insight. I don't have much to say about it other than just, it was curious Matt's description of like their appreciation for like free arts and all of that stuff. But
like, I wonder why they came here. Like is it because it's abandoned and like that's why, or is it like a tongue like because if it was related to the Arcart and stuff, is it like a tongue in cheek like?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point. Why this location, right?
Mm-hmm. And do you think? I don't think this has to be the case at all, but do you think lewdness had anything to do with the downfall of this city back whenever?
No, I doubt it. I don't think so. But maybe now that we
You never know.
there's so much lewdness needs like his own when everything's said and done from this campaign, we need like so much lore dropping of lewdness just because it's so intriguing, honestly.
It would make that would be a great subject for one of their novels.
Yeah, actually. That's a great point.
But
yeah.
about this battle though, like they seem like not that they're like overtly confident, but like the fact that they're even like taking this fight, I feel like is pretty bold.
Honestly, the vibe I got was not necessarily impatience, but like there was a moment where like they were chatting so much, and then Liam was like, "All right, I'm going for it. I'm gonna do it."
Yeah,
it was very like just D&D table-esque of like the party's chatting, and then someone just like pulls the lever.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this feels like a fight on the level of Adahan Thule in my mind.
I feel like it's worse.
Oh yeah, you're totally right for sure. I mean, it definitely seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that just like Zethuda maybe he's not as powerful as Odahan, like on a 1v1, but like we've got Zethuda, we've got Gloamgut, we've got a simulacrum of lewdness
that we know casts level 9 spells.
Yeah,
by the way.
And I mean, I think he is a simulacrum, but we don't know that, do we? Like, it could be him.
What if this was like the ultimate, bait and switch? Like,
well, because remember we were suspicious because,
yes,
again, like not that we think Liliana betrayed them, but like it's at least possible,
Yeah. I
So
think it would be incredibly intriguing if, because there was a point where they were doing the strategy plan where they, Chetney was talking about his brand of castigation. And if he like upcasts it, it prevents like Misty Step or Blink or whatever it was,
yeah,
and, or whatever the ability was. Maybe Dimension Door, I can't remember. And they were like, well, we don't have to worry about lewdness because it's snowy lewdness. We should do it on Zethula.
yeah.
So like, I just think if I'm Matt, I'm just like, yes.
You
Um,
thought,
yeah, I mean, this seems like a pretty crazy fight. Um,
yeah. I
I mean, I
mean,
don't know.
even it probably isn't the real lewdness, but again, even if it's just the simulacrum plus there's probably more guards, even though I know they took out a bunch on the way in. Like,
Right.
so yeah, I don't imagine this being like a walk in the park. So I was a
Yeah.
little bit surprised by their like moxie running
Yeah.
into this thing.
Yes. I'm with you for sure.
But I guess there's some
Um,
interesting dynamics at play. They do have Ira
yeah.
to back them up, and
Which
the
which I've said
Zathuda.
before.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say every time there's a big fight, there's always an NPC there. The
Yeah,
one exception was Autohan Thul. That was
yeah,
the one time that there was not an NPC present.
true.
But go ahead though.
I was just gonna say that that they've got Ira, and we at least know there is like a weird. It's like it's an what's the word I'm looking for? Alliance of convenience, really, between Unseelie and Lewdness.
Hmm.
You know, like they're kind of just using each other. So like,
Right.
and the whole Fern connection with Zathuda. So like, maybe there's some like handicaps that could benefit the Bell's Hells
Yeah.
ultimately. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not like stressed level of worried, but like, I don't think this is just like a foregone conclusion that they're gonna dominate this and it's all gonna be okay. Like, maybe even suffer some losses if they're not careful. Like, does resurrection work in the Feywild? Like, you know, it doesn't work on Exandria. It works on Ruidus, but you know, I don't know.
I think there's a real possibility that there's another player death for sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, the conversation of the uncanny ambush. What a interesting phrasing
Mm-hmm.
about this, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if this is some sort of nod to like a double cross or like someone who's like part of this whole initiative to take over the Malleus Key, not specifically like the Vox Machina mission, but like the grander initiative. If there's some people who, you know, we've talked about this a little bit about like if the orb gets out, could there be some like powerful NPCs who turn to Ludinus's side? I don't know if that's the implication of this uncanny ambush. I guess the weirdest thing about it would be it would have to be something Fey sourced, so that line becomes a little blurred there. I don't know the connection between the Unseelie Court and then one of these like major NPCs.
Yeah.
But do you have any guesses on like what this could be or what this ambush could be?
Not really. I was not really. Like, I don't have a good guess, but did you think, and I might need to re-listen to it, but was it in reference to something that had not happened yet?
I think so. I think it
Okay.
was like there's an opportunity because there was like this thing that was like, now granted this was like 1 a.m, but there was something about uh there was a comment. I think maybe it was the uncanny ambush line, but maybe it was something else. And then there was something from Ludinus that was like, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Mm,
So I think that means something that
yeah.
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. Um, so- yeah, I don't have any like concrete guesses to say this faction, but like, I really think there is going to be a shoe to drop with,
Hmm.
like some people, and they don't have to specifically have been present at that meeting in the sanctuary in Vasselheim, but like, not everyone is going to be
Hmm.
team
Yeah.
God, let's just call it for simplicity's sake, especially if that Downfall movie comes out. So like, I definitely think with all these plans that we have for all these strike teams, like Ludinus has plans too. So,
Right.
you know, what shape it's going to take, I don't have a good guess, but I expect some surprises.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun episode on Thursday. Moving backwards, just some other data points. I loved the tension with Ira, and I just also loved like the characterization of like this middle-aged or maybe a little older woman drinking like a cocktail, and then like the comment of like, yeah, Ira's coming, and just like that moment that Matt played it out of just like, oh. And then also the love triangle, or well, Bray is like, I just love Sam. I love Sam. Sam saw such a great opportunity there to like insert himself, and
that was perfect.
It was just really funny.
That really was. He's the king of like making a moment out of something like that. And Matt just, jumping on it immediately with Maury was perfect. I don't know, I'm curious what actually happened between the two of them. Maybe something we won't actually ever get to find out, but that was really fun. And I'm also just curious, speaking of the previous conversations, what exactly for Chet and Maury's deal, it was to become legendary or like world renowned or something.
The word was infamous.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I remember we talked about that, like in terms of like a monkey paw.
Yeah, and so, but we haven't really. There hasn't been like a curse side of this. Yeah, I guess.
But he gives.
Makes me wonder.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it makes me wonder if there's also a shoe to drop with him, but maybe not. I don't know.
Because he gives her the piece of glass.
Yeah,
and I think I'm mixing my wires here, because is that what he promised her, to like bring her back stuff from Rudis? Because I thought it was something else.
I think she asked for like a shard of Prodathos or something.
That's right. Okay, yeah, that's what I.
But knowing what this glass is, that it is like the tangible form of Prodathos, I think that line makes sense. But I don't know if it's exactly what was in Maury's mind, which is why she said, like, bring me more.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense then. Maybe he was just like, here's a progress report on, Okay, I think I was getting that crossed with the all minds burn stuff, which they're just, they need to plant that seed just anywhere on Rudis, or?
They decided they wanted to do it like deep, closer, probably near the hallowed cage would be my guess, or even crazy enough within it. I love, I'm sorry I keep using this expression like peak D&D, but it's just, it's so stereotypical of a D&D table. All like the random tiny plot threads that's like, oh yeah, we got to do something about that. And they're starting to kind of not pile up. And I don't mean it's not a negative thing. It's just, it's very D&D. It's like, oh yeah, we need to do that. So you have Chetney, you have the all minds burn thing, the seed. There's the backpack from Otahan that's just chilling in their bag of holding. You know, presumably a pretty powerful item.
Yeah. I think last time we talked about this, the backpack thing, I feel like somebody in our comments told me that it was like broken and pretty messed up. So maybe that's why they've kind of forgotten about it. But even if it is, I would still imagine you could get somebody to look at it, perhaps fix it, or at the very least just absorb it with the harness, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very like RPG. You know, you've got all these like side quests that you know, they kind of are lining up toward the final boss. So yeah, it's very, very epic, you know, adventure-esque feeling there. And then go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna, on that same topic, but a different conversation.
The only other small thing I was gonna say is about Orym and his deal with Maury. That, you know, thanks for your help. And she's like, sorry, I couldn't do more. And obviously that was like a big moment. Like they were face to face with the Weave Mind, like was not good. But I'm just curious if that is it from Maury. Now, obviously Orym has that feat, like he's Fey touch, so he still benefits in that way. But I'm curious if like, if he can call in any more favors, or if the Weave Mind thing was like, that's all you get type of thing.
That feels like a pretty momentous moment from Maury.
Yeah, because it was like a wish spell, basically, right?
Yeah. Which I wonder, like, what would have happened without it? I know we've already we treaded that ground already, but I mean, I do genuinely wonder, like, where does that conversation go?
Because wasn't
Um,
that was right after Odahan, right?
no, right before.
It was right
Right before
before.
Oran. Yeah, they
Okay.
were escaping, and Liliana popped in, was like, "Hey guys, see you later," and like
Oh yeah,
scooted
that's
off.
right.
And then the
That's right.
Weave Mind showed up,
That's
or
right. Okay.
projected themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
So, um, so speaking of like plot threads that
Yeah.
you don't always get to, I feel like Fern's parents is another example of that. There was some really cool nuance of um like Birdie wanting to seemingly like connect with Fern, and then there
Yeah.
was kind of like a, for lack of a better phrase, Maury kind of like arms around Fern, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go on our mission now.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a comment at the table. I don't know if it was even an insight check or just like some chatter around it, but this interesting implication of like, is Maury, is there like some, I don't know if gaslighting is the right word, but like, is something happening here? And we've talked about in the past too about, we know there was like some memory wiping that happened for the
Right.
party.
Right.
But Ashley also didn't. I couldn't tell if Ashley was kind of like, okay, yeah, well, we'll get to that later. I couldn't tell if, like, sometimes you put out plot threads for your players and they just don't really grab onto it.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't tell if that was happening or if this is, we'll circle back to. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think there's something there. Whether or not like we get to flesh it out is another question. But yeah, I mean, as much as Maury seems to actually care for Fern and seemingly has a similar relationship with her mother, at least that's
Mhm.
what we're told, sort of.
Yeah.
She's still like an arch fey
Yeah.
hag creature at the end
Right.
of the day, and is probably not doing anything out of the kindness of her heart. Like
Right.
she essentially, like, they bartered Fern to her is how I get, like, in order to protect her, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. But still, like, so I'm wondering if it's that kind of a situation where, like, I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but like, and why am I blanking on her mom's name? What is it?
Birdie.
Birdie. Like, maybe like Birdie trying to come in and have this moment with Fern. Maybe more is like, yeah, you know what? Like, she's mine, actually.
Yeah.
Like, you gave her up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm
There
reading like too much into that, but I feel
there
like there
was
is
like,
something there because of the
yeah,
memory
and
wipe and stuff.
there was like a subtext there that we talked about where the way it was presented was Maury held on to Fern, like protected Fern while they like went off. But then we had a conversation, maybe the first time they met Maury, of like, well, wait a second, was this actually like a deal or like and you used the word just now, an exchange? And
Yeah.
it does feel like there was something present, and maybe like there's boundaries around that are keeping this full, I don't say reunion from happening because they're reunited, but I keep using the word subtext. There's like a weird something subtle there. Um, and I kind of just wonder, because you remember Imogen like digging deep into, I can't think of her dad's name. Well, her
Ollie?
Ollie, yeah. And there was like the erase to memories, and like Matt said something like, if you dig any deeper, like you risk like actual harm
Yeah.
to Ollie, whose like nose was bleeding too, and like,
Yeah.
anyway, we may never go anywhere with it, but
I think the implication back then was that was the Nightmare King's doing, like,
yeah,
because he was working with her parents and kind of manipulating them. So I think like we do have like a sufficient answer for that, but it could have been a double,
I
like a
mean,
double thing. Like, it was also Maury's finagling.
where my mind is going is like it was like a 3-part thing. Like Maury and her parents had like this exchange, and like, could this be before Ira and Maury fell out? That there was like a, hey, I need some tinkering on an old mind that I have.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
I don't know. I mean, because it's kind of oddly convenient otherwise that her parents were with Maury and then set out on their own and ran into Ira, who
mhm,
had this old fling with Maury. Like
yeah,
there's a little,
who
it's a little
built
too convenient,
and Maury made the lens that
right? To
enabled
give, yeah,
Ira's.
to give to Ira,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I could
So
definitely see some stuff going on there. And I mean, just like we were just talking about Maury's deals with Orem and Chet, I think undoubtedly there is a deal in place for Fern.
mhm,
And
it seems
I'm
that way.
guessing that moment with Maury and Birdie was
Yeah.
some, like you mentioned, some sort of subtext around that. And then it was interesting that she gave Fern that necklace. I'm curious there's more there. I feel like
it does seem that way,
like beyond just a sentimental gift. But yeah, there's totally something else there. Dating back all the way to EXU, where we locked in on this false memory, because we still don't really have an explanation for that, do we? Like beyond just like, there's no true explanation for why that was necessary, I don't think. Unless I'm just, I mean, it's been like 3 years, so maybe I've just forgotten.
I'm just trying to remember. I think there wasn't a compelling reason for her memory being off. Was the biggest issue from that. Like her being led to the gate to come to Exandria. Just a very weird thing.
It was to bring the lens, right? That was it, I think, right? Wasn't that the whole reason?
Yeah. But why not just make that the mission from the get? Like, be upfront about it,
right?
And then the other thing is the detail about the letters that Maury wrote.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was also, well, this came out in the campaign actually,
right?
The letters from her parents were heavily implied to have been Grandma Maury writing them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's obviously something about preventing this reunion.
Yeah.
And yet they're here. Her parents are living in Ligament Manor. There's so many like weird angles there that I don't know if it'll ever get resolved, but it's almost like begging a deeper look.
Yeah. And then we got Zathura, who's interjected into this a little bit. And then Asmodeus as well now.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot going on with Fern.
Yeah. So,
let me go ahead if you've got a direction. But I was just gonna take a look at my notes.
I was making a joke about Fern spending her week spreading her legs, as Matt put it.
That was such a hilarious slip of the tongue.
Yeah, we got a Shiver and Quiff reference in that too, which is great. So, which that probably sounded really weird out of context, but it was a flub by Matt is all I was referencing. So
sure, weirdo.
Always knew you were a pervert. Not a lot else. I loved. There's not much to say about it. I just loved. What was Chetney's fan's name?
Wayland.
Wayland. I just love Fern getting caught and then just being like, Wayland, sorry.
Yeah.
And then like the passive aggressiveness over breakfast in the morning, where he's like serving like the feast, and then to Fern specifically, like, that's all we have. Sorry. It was just really good. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't. She got off pretty easily, but I guess an honored guest of Chetney, he would never step to.
Right.
But yeah, I assume, or at least hope, we haven't seen the last of not necessarily Wayland, but just Chetney's infamy in whatever shape that's going to take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at my notes. I honestly don't have too much else to dive into.
There's not much else to say about it. Great episode. Some fun shenanigans. And do we have a run time for this next episode?
Not to my knowledge. I know that in the Discord we always have somebody that posts it, I think, as soon as they update the night bot, but I don't think they do that until Thursday at the earliest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it then, friends. Thanks for watching today. Let us know what you thought about the episode, your theories and thoughts. We read all the comments, so even the mean ones. No, I'm just kidding.
Especially the mean ones.
So watch parties tomorrow night.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. Again, check out Worlds Beyond Number, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night for the watch party. Goodbye, my friends.